So welcome back to another one of my show-off videos. Today we're doing the United States Army and the United States Marine Corps 28mm figures. The Marine Corps are the ones on the left, sand bases. I hope that kind of gives it away. I think there's about 130, 140 odd figures there, which means it is still a smaller force than my Imperial Guard, which is just under 200 men. But hey, that's the glories of being the servants of the Emperor. We'll start with the US Army because the US Marines are always playing second fiddle to the Army, and I'll just give you a quick explanation of what I've got. So here's the command section. This force is a little bit more, I want to say, thematic. I'm probably using that word wrong. Basically, it's more designed around sort of scenario orientation than it is maybe even a little bit of bolt action. So we've got section 1. With 9 figures and a bar and a machine gun. Oh, sorry, not bar, machine gun. So bar and a submachine gun. Second section with, again, Thompson, and in this case 2 bars, he says. Yeah, there's a second bar, it's at the back. And then my recce team of 3 men, Thompson with 2 men with rifles, or carbine and a rifle. In the rear we have a sniper and a medic, 6-pounder anti-tank gun, sorry, 57mm anti-tank gun, this is Americans, the 50 cal team with a 4-man element, but hey, that's what Warlord give you, a 60mm mortar, so the light American mortar, and a bazooka team. All these figures here are Warlords. I think they came out of the base box set that you get for the US Army. The only ones who are maybe a little bit odd is things like the soldier in the middle with the kneeling down. He was originally a tank commander for the Sherman. I decided I didn't really want to have a tank commander sitting out of the Sherman, so I figured I'd turn him into a sergeant. And how can you tell he's a sergeant? Well, he's got a stripe on the back of his helmet. It's like the platoon leader has a stripe on the back of his helmet, like they're supposed to. Now, the idea of this platoon force, if you want to put it that way, is pretty much what you see here. Well, not to add the Marines in too much, is more or less what would be fielded as a maximum force, or would be fielded in a scenario. Maybe drop a couple of jeeps. Essentially, the platoon leader and his little team operate from 1 jeep. We have a second jeep team, so a recce jeep team. 2 sections of infantry riding in the half tracks. Granted, they should be in battle group, because normally what I play is battle group. They would be 12-man sections. I didn't have quite enough men, or I would use the Marines to bolster up the numbers in the sections. So that's sort of what I generally do. So at the moment, this is just purely the Marines. This is purely the US Army troops. Everything here, as I said again, everything here is Warlords. It's all their plastic stuff. The Jeeps over here in the middle, there's 4 of them. I think, let me see if I remember rightly. That one's a Warlord resin. That's a Rubicon. That one is a Warlord's resin. And that's the other Rubicon. And the trailer was a Rubicon as well. Why do I have 2 and 2? Well, these come as individuals. I managed to acquire a couple of them. And then the Jeeps from Rubicon come as a pair. They fit fairly well with each other. I will say the Rubicon ones are a little bit more simplistic in their detail, as in they haven't got things like the equipment on the fronts and stuff like that. You have to add that yourself, but they still work, in my opinion. You can add it yourself if you want to. It's not it's there, and it's character. Question mark, good thing, bad thing, always comes down to, I think, the individual. Bazooka team came with there's basically 2 GIs who got given that equipment. So that's as a set, all metal. These 2 were converting them, so adding a Springfield rifle and a cap to the sniper, painting up a helmet and giving him some equipment to make him up as a medic. I think he's got a pouch on his back. Yes, there's a little red cross on it, which is George S. Patton. I don't have the dog. And we have a pair of half tracks. Both of these are from Warlords. They're both plastic models. Again, quite nice. Perhaps a little bit small, but they are quite good. I like the models. They're clean. They're good. This is the resin 76 version of the Sherman, next to a 75 plastic Sherman, both from Warlords. There isn't much in the way of size difference. The resin one is slightly more detailed in some respects, while the plastic one is a little bit more simplistic in its detail, but not a problem. We then have at the back a pair of M5 Stewarts. The one on the left, this one, is the resin one from Warlords, and this one is the Rubicon one. Now you might be wondering, why is there a 75mm howitzer turret sat in front of it? Oh, let me show you. Take that off. Take that off. That on into place. And that into place. And as if by magic, I now have an M5 Stewart and the gun carry. I think the turret barrel rig. Yeah, there we go. I'll get into the right position. So that's the advantage of the Rubicon kits. They only give you one body. In the case of the Stewarts, I haven't bought any of their others like this. Well, I haven't bought any of their other tank kits. You might see some more Rubicons in a minute. This allowed me to, when I read it up, it was like, oh, you get 3 versions. And I sort of had a word with someone. They went, no, you only get the body parts to build one. But then in this case, you can pull it apart and run it as, and as I've done, I've basically run it as this version. It gives me the, as you can see, I can put it together. I don't do it too often. It's varnished up, so it should be well protected from mishandling. And it's turret still moves, he says. Okay, it's not going to move in a moment. I'm not going to push it. Don't push it. But yeah, that's kind of what I do. Is everything here can be transferred over to the Marines. So you might be wondering why is there quite a few of them at the front? Well, first off, we have our focuses in. So we have our Marine Commander team, so Marine Officer. I was going to say Sergeant Major. What would he be called? He'd be a Master Sergeant, Staff Sergeant. I'm not too sure on the Marine vernacular for it. And Radio Operator. Again, sorry, just quickly, these are all set up. These are properly set up for the Pacific War from Battle Group. This is a 4-man Marine Command Protection team. So in theory, they would have a Jeep as well. Bar gunner, Thompson gunner, and 2 riflemen. Their job is literally to guard these 3. We have a 2-man Air OP or Naval Gun Battery OP, depending on whether I want to drop, well, depending on whether I want to drop the guns from the Missouri on my father-in-law, or if I just want to drop Hellcats on him. Over here we have a 3-man recce team. These will be operating from a Jeep. So we'll start with 1st platoon and then work our way through. 6-man command team, platoon leader, sergeant, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 riflemen. We have here a medic attending to a casualty. This is one of the figures that I got with the back set. I originally bought the Semper Fidelis box set, which is where a lot of these guys come from. However, you might notice that some of my Marines they're not in the ripped up and torn up style of uniform because they are originally GIs. I used the excess GIs because I originally wanted to build up GIs, and then the US Army troops I built up as later date. So this is 1st section. Now these are divided up, so you have a sergeant. Let me see if I can get into a position. All right, so 3 bar gunners, 1 per fire team, and a shotgun soldier. He is essentially an extra bolt-on. You buy him as an upgrade to your fire teams. You can give a fire team a bazooka. I think you can give them an anti-tank, a demolition charge, and a shotgun in each fire team. I decided to just go with 1. Otherwise, he just pretends to be a normal rifleman when I'm running the full section. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 riflemen, broken down into 2 teams of 4 and 1 team of 5, because the sergeant has to go with someone in this case. I believe normally the Marines would run the sergeant as a separate. He would be moving between all the 3 teams, but for the purpose of the game, they keep it simple and they just put him in with the rest of the guys. Now, this is where we get into some entertaining factors, because not all of these guys are Warlords. If you spot the non-Warlords figures, kudos to you. He says, I'm going to double check a couple of figures. No, they are all. So it's not this section, it's the next section. So again, 3 bar gunners, shotgun, armed soldier, and then 1, and the selection of riflemen. These are not the Marine. Most of these are not Marines. They are originally US Army troops, just repainted in green uniforms. And then the 3rd section, or 3rd squad, should say squad because they're Marines. British is sections. We have our 3 bar gunners, who are assault group. they're not Warlords, and then the remainder is shotgun, and the rest are infantrymen. Mostly again from the US Army, just repainted. A little bit of green stuff on their helmets just to give them the appearance of having helmet covers. Seem like him and him, and then they've painted them all up. Now, these guys are, I'll just bring them out, bring one of them out. So these guys are assault group. I will say they are slightly smaller than the Warlords figures, but I do like the character and the color of them, and I want to say they are a little bit cheaper. They don't come in necessarily the best organized packs, but if you need to build up large numbers of forces fairly quickly, they do a very good deal. Second platoon, so platoon leader, sergeant, and then the rifleman of the squad. In this case, we get the with stretcher running medic. First squad in its entirety, 3 bars, shotgun, and various riflemen, sergeants. So again, 2 fire teams of 4, 1 fire team of 5. Second squad, broken down exactly the same setup. Some slightly bendy bayonets because of the way I'm storing them. I didn't quite realize until too late that it was like, ooh, bayonets are bending a little bit. Not all of them are bendy. As you can see, he's doing all right at the back right corner. And again, some of my bars, they've kept the bipods on. Some of them, they've ripped the bipods off. And then we move to the rear with support weapons. So 80 millimeter mortar. Yeah, 80 millimeter mortar with Marine crew from Warlords. 37. Yes, 37, the little anti-tank gun with 3-man crew, Warlords. This one is the Warlords walking 30 cal machine gun team, one of. This is an assault group 30 cal machine gun team. This one is also an assault group walking machine gun team, which I must be honest, I prefer them to them. I like the way they are because they're all walking together, whereas the gunner here is firing while his 2 buddies are basically sprinting. It's a little bit of a weird aesthetic. And then the 4th machine gun team is a Warlords team. Moving to the top corner, we have the proper, well, one proper Warlords anti-tank team. So they're all metal figures, all set poses. And then the one next to them are some GIs, infantrymen, converted over to being an anti-tank team. And we have these 3. They are supposed to work with the 50 cal when I need a 50 cal to add to the force. Then we have Sniper Team 1, which is made up from Marines, as in from the basic Marine sprue, and then given us Springfield. And then the second Sniper Team, which is the metal version, a little bit more relaxed and not really in the fighting pose, whereas these guys are. And then we have 2-man flamethrower teams. Flamethrower guys are generic single pose models. The GIs next to them, also the Marines, sorry, the GIs is an army thing. The Marines next to them are from the generic sprues. So we have a wide variety of troops. Yes, I have 2 platoons. A 3rd platoon would give me a complete company, which would also require me to get probably another mortar, at least another 2 machine guns in the 30 cal variant. And yes, my father-in-law has a lot of Japanese. I've not actually fielded the entire force yet, but hey, it's potentially one day I might do it. Now at the back we have the Buffaloes. So these are all LVT4s. One is not like the others, and no, it's not because one of them is grinning at you. So this one on the end was the first one I bought, was a Warlords one, resin kit. Machine guns are slightly different. Shields are more cut down. Back door doesn't open or anything like that, but he has got bench seats inside. A bit more weight to him. And then we have Rubicon, a little bit of weight to him. Machine guns are still relatively free to run, larger shields, and the back doors can drop, but there's no seats inside. Same with this one. That one. Machine guns give a little bit of thing. Again, you might notice that there's a little bit of difference in the detailing of the actual models themselves, how they look, though most of it is not that much different. For example, the hooks, I want to call them bill hooks, but I don't think that's what they're called. These things, they're a little bit more subtly part of the mold on the front of the Rubicon vehicles, or on this one they're a bit more they're a bit more solid. Detail is slightly different. Again, this Buffalo is, I want to say he's a little bit smaller. Yeah, he's a little bit smaller by comparison. It's just make sure they are actually more or less at the back together. Yeah, so he's a little bit shorter, a little bit smaller, slightly differently angled. Has a couple of extra vision slots in the side, whereas these ones don't. Almost like, you could argue, probably slightly different versions, maybe like a Mark 1, Mark 2, maybe that's the Mark 1s, these are the Mark 2s, I don't know. Don't know how you want to put it. Onto the whole force. So everything about this was originally designed for Op Squad, and then it just sort of exploded, particularly the Marines did. As my father-in-law went, I'm going to build a Japanese infantry company. I have to match you with this. Good thing was it was getting my hands on the Semper Fidelis box set, which gave me a lot of support weapons, machine guns, and again the assault group doing quite a lot of figures in the form of bar gunners and things like that, as it was easier to get their bar gunners, which are metal and single pose, but actually look very good in my opinion. And it was to build another 20,000 bar gunners for my Marines. Both forces essentially can mix and match to make up a larger group. Or as I said, I normally will use the Marines to bulk up the US Army troops when I'm playing games set in Europe, as it will allow me to field more battle group orientated 12-man squads, 3 squads to a platoon, and I can add in the extra machine guns, as in theory in an armored rifle platoon I should have a machine gun per section, so I should have 3 machine guns. I should have a third half track. I don't. I tend to just put them on the back of a tank and just go there. They're driving. They're riding. They're playing tank riders. Rubicon tanks are, I want to say, I think they are still a little bit cheaper than the Warlord stuff. I do prefer them. The interesting thing about these ones, about their Buffaloes, is that you can get the waterline kit with things. So each one of these came with a waterline variant. So it's basically the ability where you have this as a top piece and you had sort of shortened sides. And the idea was that you could run them as if it was running in the water. The only problem is they only give you enough to make one version or the other. A little bit cheeky, I think, because, well, it's like a third the size. Never mind. Whereas at least with the Stuart kit, I could take the front plate off and the turret plate and the top plate off with the turret, and I can still turn it into whatever I want it to be. I don't have any proper Satans. I just pretend that either my Sherman or my M3 or my M5s are flamethrower variants. Back to the US Army troops. So the Jeeps work with both, the tanks work with everybody, even the half-tracks can actually go over with the Marines, though they are in theory meant to be more for the Army troops. Yeah, the organisation between the Army troops is that I've sort of organised them more along kind of what's there, as they were, like I said, they were originally designed to be an op squad force, so it was meant to be 10, 11 infantrymen, a couple of bar gunners, and a varied selection of NCOs and corporals with, senior NCOs and junior NCOs with a variety of weapons for use, and then it just sort of escalated a little bit from there. And then the Marines came in, and I used my excess GIs to make up the Marines, because they were kind of, I wanted to make them into a more full force, whereas the US Army troops were going to stay more as op squad, but they kind of expanded a little bit. Yeah, this one is probably more, I can use these, and I have used these for a couple of bolt action games. I think there's one of my last war games we did was the testing out of the 3rd edition rules, and it was my Marines. Here, you see them here, starring against Dave's IGA. And then my US Army troops don't tend to get much runouts. They usually get out more as an op squad force, though with bolt action they're probably fairly well organized. I just need another guy to play as a lieutenant so I can run the anti-tank gun, the tanks, and they changed so many weird things about that. I don't quite know what they were doing with their new rejigging of the rules. But anyway, I'll call it quits there, I think. Thank you very much for coming along and watching again. I will hopefully have an actual war game video, as we have a game refighting the invasion of Germany, British troops, Monty's invasion into the Schwarzwald, and we're in a couple of weekends at the time of videoing this, so hopefully if I might take a few photos and then post them up as a sort of like a montage clip of the game.